Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Lonmin announced at this week's results that employees were throwing their weight behind productivity improvement, which was helping the company to generate cash. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Lonmin shares rose some 6% this week, and job cuts are no longer inevitable. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think they've wasted the good crisis, as they say. You know, these crises are there to be changes, the catalysts of change, and we can see that the way they've approached their people, post-crisis has been very positive. And in being very positive, you suddenly get this new element of people who are prepared to work with you, give you a lot of information on what's needed. And all of a sudden, your plans to retrench can be put on one side. You can keep everybody busy. You can then introduce new projects that at least wash their own face. They don't cost you anything, and they keep people going. So if there is an upturn in the metal prices, which everyone expects there's going to be at some stage a better platinum price, then you're really well positioned. And this is what's happening now at Lonmin. So it came out of this terrible critical period, the longest strike in history. It's at the Marikana Commission. It's being vilified still as a company that actually aided and abetted the massacre. And yet it's able to put a smile on its face, when it comes to the presentation of results, and tell you how productivity is rising and capacity use at shafts is rising because of the cooperation of the workers. And they tell you that they have been very open with the workers, so the workers know how serious the situation is, and they know that they will succeed along with the company. If the company succeeds, they succeed. And this seems to be a message that gets through. Mm-hmm. Even when you come to big cost cutting, and they're planning very big cost cutting, 2 billion rands over 3 years, and again, workers are on board with that because they've taken them into their confidence. Okay, the share rose 6%. It's going to have to do a lot more rising because, that share was decimated, and it came down from the 60 rand a share down to 30 rand and below. It's still in the 30 rand, 35 rand range. So you've got to go quite a lot higher to make up, but at least the trend is right.
Now, you mentioned that they're keeping workers busy. What are they doing?
They will go to different shafts that haven't been performing well, and they will talk about the Hossie shaft and the Safi shaft and the K4 and all the other names they've got. But Hossie particularly, they were going to put on care and maintenance. Mm-hmm. And because of explaining to the staff that, look, this is a dead duck shaft. Unless we do something here, it closes, you suddenly find that the workers come into the party and they turn it around. And there's a turning around of these particular assets that they thought they'd have to put on care and maintenance or close down. That shut doesn't have to take place now because of the cooperative working together.
Now, what is the future outlook of platinum in South Africa, especially considering the proposal for a platinum exchange?
To be a price taker is a very hard thing. Everyone in the world is tempted to be a price maker. And the only way you can really be a price maker when you've got a globally used product is actually to create a single channel marketing system. Now, when you do that, you fall foul of a lot of things like the World Trade Organization, etc. But because things are so dire in the platinum industry, you do get think tanks like Mistra coming forward, the Mapungubwe, to say, look, hey, we've got more of this metal than anyone in the world. Why do we have to be a taker of a price that's so bad? And a taker of the price that seems to be pushed down. People are using futures markets, etc. They claim to subdue this price. Now, we can't afford that. We're a developing country. We need some sort of, not a guarantee, but we need to have some sort of idea of where that price is going. Otherwise, it hurts us too badly. And why don't you do something about Canada? If you're so worried about the cartelization of a metal or a mineral, how come potash gets away with it? How come the Canadians in Saskatchewan, why are they allowed to do it? If they're allowed to do it, why shouldn't we be allowed to do it? We're a developing country. So those are the sort of thoughts that are going through. But they're going to take a lot of persuasion because, you find that the people attending these meetings now are not the CEOs. They're not the very top people. So they're a little bit scared to enter that terrain. Yeah. Nobody wants to be accused of being a cartel. You know, you don't want the like the oil cartel and that sort of image. But at the same time, you know, people are beginning to get concerned about having to take prices. There's nothing worse than being a price taker when things are really down and when it seems like there's too much metal around. And you think, well, you know, if we had had a single channel, we could have made sure that that metal got through at the right pace. We might be stockpiling to a certain extent, but is that so terrible if people are still employed? And you know, we're not allowing the price to spike. You know, we're going through at a very reasonable level, as they do with the potash in Canada. Why shouldn't we be allowed to do it? And I think if the Canadian cartel is not smashed, it'll give us an opening to say, look, we must be allowed to do it because they are far more developed than we are. We've got far more unemployment. We can't afford this nonsense, you know, where some futures banker, you know, pushes our price down in a market we know nothing about. It's so opaque, it's so dark that surely you should be shining lights on that. And don't call that the market. It doesn't look like a market to me. It looks like a banker's paradise where they do things to suit themselves. So why shouldn't they be disciplined? Why should we be the ones that always have to be disciplined? So it could be a debate that enters quite a high level. It'll have to enter a high level. There'll have to be people who say, yes, we agree that if we're going to allow it in Canada, then we must allow it in your country. Then we might also have to pull in, you know, Zimbabwe and maybe the Russians. And that would be a difficult thing because, you know, the Russians are not persona grata at the moment, so to bring them in could also damage our case. We've got to be very careful with it. I suppose if we get back to the halcyon days of you know, high prices, we'll say, oh no, we prefer the market. You know, we prefer the market. And I suppose if you talk to some of the people in the business, they would say, look, we prefer the market. But I think that during these dire circumstances, I'm not surprised that the debate is around having a single channel marketing system, having an exchange, having something like the potash exchange in Canada, which looks after that industry so well. Obviously, it also tends to keep people out. We saw that when BHP Billiton tried to get into potash, they're still trying to get into potash. They're battling along because that cartel makes it difficult for them. That's also not really right, especially in a thing like potash, which affects our food supply. It's not as, I don't think platinum is as life and death as that. And how the Canadians get away with it is just beyond me.
I suppose it's a fine balancing act.
It's a balancing act, and also we need to stay in the first division. You know, you don't want to play in the second division of the world. We've been in like a developed and a developing country, and now we sort of saying, hey, you know, we are a developing country, but we should really aspire to playing in the first division. If we play in the first division, we'll go along with markets, but then we've got to be very careful how those markets are supplied, because the moment they're oversupplied or there's too much metal on surface, you know, the futures markets can play havoc with the price, as we see still going on at the moment.
Well, we'll watch this space.
We will do.
Thank you very much, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on South Africa's mining industry.